another question that's great is if you're not resonating with how a man is being or what he's doing at all, is the question, what if there's a good reason for that? And to be curious instead of to project onto him that he's doing that for the same reason I would have done that. Mm-hmm. So, may I give an example?
Yes, please.
Early on, in our workshops, I was talking to our panel of men before they came into the room. And I was just letting them know what it would be like, because we want them to be as confident as they possibly can. And this man was like not looking me in the eye. He was giving really short answers. He was being like rude. I wanted to kick him off the panel, but it was too late. I couldn't think of a way to do it. I didn't have experience in doing that yet. But fortunately, I didn't know how to do it at that time. And then when he was speaking on the panel, there was a question about what makes a woman attractive. And they were talking about the difference between a woman who's attractive in a way that has them care about her and want to give to her and be protective of her and provide for her, like, you know, all the goodies, versus a woman that was their type and that made them kind of crazy because she was so their type. It activated their most kind of primitive, take that. And as he was describing his type, he was describing what I looked like at the time.
Oh, wow.
Yes, he was describing a woman just like me, my coloring, my shape, everything. And suddenly I realized why he was so strange at the table with the other men. He was just trying to protect himself from his own reaction to the way that I looked. From the moment I walked up to the table, it was a problem. He was not himself. And he was trying to stop being not himself. But thank goodness I was I let him in, and then I was curious to see what happens. And then, that was the good reason for that. Mm-hmm. Instead of this guy's just a jerk. So that's another really useful question, especially when what someone's saying seems really like, huh? What? Why did Michelle let them in the summit? Well, everyone that's part of the summit is someone that you've chosen because you know how much they want to provide for women who are committed to these great relationships. And I mean, it's the one last thing that men always say is they just think it's awesome that women are working hard to have better relationships with men. They're so moved by how much we're trying.
Yeah, I agree. So do we have time, Allison, to talk really briefly about some of the journey of men, or do we have time for that today?
Well, let's do a really short one, okay? So as you're listening to the different men, besides their trusted information, right? So their information from trusted sources, otherwise known as a fact, and their values, and a whole bunch of things about them individually, they're also going to be answering the questions from their stage of development. And they're probably not aware of it. So one of the things to listen to is, do you have men, Michelle, anybody under 30?
We do have a couple in their 30s.
Beautiful. Under 30, they're likely to be what we call a knight. And life is about developing skills and testing those skills and challenging themselves to find out where they're good enough and not yet good enough, so that they keep developing their ability literally to survive. They do that instinctively. So they look for challenge and adventure. right? They look for fun, which is what challenge is to them. It's fun. So the men in their 30s are probably princes. And princes are focused on what we call building. So they're in different phases when they're a prince. You probably don't have any men who are looking for where to build. They're probably in the middle of building it or have had a lot of success in their building. So it's always about, am I getting somewhere? Like, where am I getting? What am I accomplishing? Is it coming together? And it affects everything that they do. Then, towards the end of that building, which is at least 12 years, usually they spend in that stage of being a prince. And that's 12 years after they figure out what they want to build, which might take years and years to do. Then they end up in what we call the tunnel. And you'll be lucky if you have any man in the tunnel. They're not likely to say yes to something like this, but you might look out, because men in the tunnel are questioning everything. I built all this. I became all this. Does it really matter? So they're in an existential darkness where they're literally plagued with self-doubt and questions. And my book, Keys to the Kingdom, is about a couple that's going through that, where he's in the tunnel. When he comes out of the tunnel, it's literally a process of clarity where he's become extremely clear about who he is. And these are men who are likely to show up in an environment like yours in order to provide. Mm-hmm. So their values are rock solid. Mm-hmm. And you'll see one of the things that distinguishes a king is you have a sense of that any place he is, there's a space he's occupying that he owns. This is who I am. This is mine. And when you're in their area, right, that they are king of, they're going to speak with a kind of authority that can blow your hair back. Mm-hmm. Like, wow. I mean, they don't equivocate. And that's part of being a king. And the focus of being a king is literally to provide. Mm-hmm. So we have this test and adventure, we have building, and then we have provide. And they will provide for whomever they consider to be their own, like your mind to take care of. And so many of the men that you will interview in the summit will be men who their definition of whose mind to take care of is much bigger than like their family or their business. It includes women they've never met. Yeah. Your mind to take care of, and I'm here to take care of you. And that can be a little off-putting, especially to older women, successful women, like, well, I never said I needed to be taken care of, and I never asked you to take care of me. No, you didn't. You didn't. But would you be willing? Would you be willing to receive this man's gifts?
Well, there's another beautiful question and another lens we can see this from, because I really do believe the men on this event are offering the women here their gifts. So I love that question. And I want to be respectful of your time. I know that you've been generous to give us a little extra time, Allison. And I also want to give you a chance to let everyone know about the exciting things you have going on your site, understandmen.com. And do you want to just say a minute or two about that before we wrap up?
Oh, thank you so much. So after 22 years of providing our courses to understand men and women in live workshops, 5 of them are now available on the internet. So they're the most up-to-date versions of our information, our teaching processes, which are always updating. You get access to them from anywhere from 90 days to, in our graduate courses, you can have 365 days to play with all four of them and cross-reference them and go back again and again and again. So the graduates who are going through our online courses now are actually more solid in the information and the understanding and transforming their marriages and the way that they date and the relationships that they're in and their families and their sons at a rate that is beyond my wildest dreams. I am so excited about it. And I get to interact with the people who are in the online courses. We keep extending opportunities for them to get on the phone with me and ask questions. And so it's still very personal.
That's wonderful. And I want to encourage all of you to go to Allison's site. The link will be right below this audio or video that you're listening or watching from. And we'll have the link available throughout the event. But believe me when I tell you, we have just touched a tiny, tiny, tiny little tip of the iceberg of what Allison has to share. And I know you can sense just from her generous sharing today that there's so much more. And I invite you to go deeper with Allison and her work.